This is the second video in the series of applications for rational equations. This one is an application using proportions. So let's go back up to the top again and of your notes just to sort of review a little bit. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. So it can be written as A to B like that. It can be written as A dot dot B, read A to B. Or the way that most of the time we write it is like this, A to B, as a fraction. A proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal to each other. So A to B is equal to C to D. When you have a proportion, it is true that their cross products, AD, is equal to BC. Or in other words, their cross products are equal. That will always be true of a ratio that is true. So let's look at example 1. We're going to use a proportion to solve this. It says in 2008, about 15 of every 100 Americans had no health insurance. The population at that time was about 302 million. How many million Americans had no health insurance? So we're going to set up over here on the side kind of a guide. It's just the order that we're going to write our ratios and proportions in. So we're going to say no health insurance over total. I'm going to kind of abbreviate. No health insurance over the total. So what it tells us is that 15 out of total of 100. So 15 had no health insurance out of 100. I got that right there. Now the other side of my proportion has to be in that same order. So it says the population at that time was about 302 million. Is that how many people didn't have health insurance, or is that a total? That is a total. So that goes on the bottom. I'm going to show you a little hint. Rather than writing 302 million, I'm just going to write the 302 part, and remember that the word million comes after that. Makes it easier than having all those zeros. And we're going to use N for how many had no health insurance. Now I have my proportions set up. We will be using cross products to solve. So what we're going to say is the first cross, I'm getting my calculator out here. The first cross is 100 times N equals 15 times 302. Or 100 N equals 4530, and remember, that's million. Now I'm going to divide by 100. It's 45.3 million. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not necessary to go ahead and write that out with all of the zeros. I'm good with leaving it just like this because it was given to me that way in the problem. So 45.3 million Americans do not have health insurance is what that means. So solving with a proportion. Let's look at another one. This is a common application of proportions. It says on a map of the United States, the distance between Reno and Phoenix is 2.5 inches. The two cities are actually 768 miles apart. On this same map, what would be the distance between St. Louis and Jacksonville, two cities that are actually 919 miles apart? So my guide in this case is going to be inches to miles. Those are the two things I'm comparing. So let's put down the first thing that it gives me. 2.5 inches corresponds to 768. That's the left side of my proportion. Now it also gives me 919 miles. So that has to go on the bottom because it's miles. And then the inches, we'll use N again for inches. So when I do my cross products, it's going to be 768N equals 2.5 times 919. So I'm going to go ahead and do that multiplication. And what we get is 768N equals 2297.5, or 2,297 and 5/10. I now have to divide both sides by 768, and when we do that, you end up with this. N equals 2.9915, and it keeps going. Our directions said round your answer to the nearest tenth. This is in tenths place. The 9 tells me to round up, so it becomes N equals 3.0 inches. Because that was a 9, to round up it becomes a 10, which adds a 1 onto the 2. Also, just a quick note, because the directions said to round to the nearest tenth, I have to show a digit in the tenths place, which in this case happens to be a 0.